your host, Obiya Omotara, and on today's episode, I shall be talking about things that men are not very open about. We all know how ladies are tend to be very, excessive in their emotions or very vocal about what they are feeling, but men are not exactly like that. And today I want to be talking about those things that men do not talk about. And to help me bring this to the fore, I have two very special people in the studio. Let us give a round of applause for you guys at home. To my guests, Mr. Femi and Mr. Nito. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Okay. So I want to go straight to the point because I feel like there is a lot that women do not talk about. And it's not because I feel like it's not because you don't want to talk. You just have certain societal pressures that keep you from expressing yourself the way you want to. The very first thing that I want to talk about is how men do not talk about their woman. Why? Why would you not talk about your woman, say to your friends or in public? Let me ask you a question.
Wow, it's interesting that you're asking me first. Yeah. And I feel like you're putting me on the spot here because I think I'm going to be breaking a lot of bro code. Yeah, well, essentially, men really do like to talk about women. Yeah, well, you're right to say that we don't like to talk about our woman. Yeah, typically, a guy could talk about, girls in a certain manner with his friends and fail to talk about his girlfriend or his fiancé. One of the reasons I could say is because, number one, when you have a serious relationship as a guy, sometimes it may mean that you look weak. Some other guys feel so. That when you have a serious relationship with a guy, man, alright, you never run girls. So sometimes we keep that part of our life secret so that friends don't know and they don't see us as someone who's hopelessly in love. Yes. Another is, now this one is quite subtle in the sense that when your girl don't measure up with your friends, girlfriends, alright, then the idea of showing her off, okay, is not there. So you really don't want to talk about her because you can't show her off. Yeah. So most guys who are always upfront about talking about their girls because they know a total package. Yeah. So they want to flaunt it. If a guy has a girl who is like a total package, he would want to flaunt it. Yeah. Okay. I mean, what do you say, Victor?
I thought that men who did not want to talk about their women to their guys was because they did not want their guys to look at their women in a certain kind of way. Like the way that they would look at the other girls that he spoke about. Am I wrong?
Not entirely. Sometimes guys don't like to talk about their women because they know how they talk about other women amongst themselves.
Yeah.
So they found this girl, they have a lot of respect for her, they found her, and they want their friends to have the same respect for her. So they don't want to introduce her or allow her come into the discussion and then we talked about it very deeply. So
that's good. I guess
they'd rather just keep it.
I guess we should be, kind of grateful because a lot of women do not understand when you're not showing us off to your friends, you're not talking about us, you're not putting us on your stories. We don't really get it, but I think now some of us would probably understand that, okay, it's just they talk about girls and I'm just not one of those girls, So yeah, thank you so very much for that. The very next thing that I want to talk about is addictions. Now I know that generally people don't really like to talk about their addictions, right?
Yeah.
But there are a few addictions that men are more prone to.
Yeah.
For instance, pornography.
Yeah.
Why would you keep something like that to yourself? In the sense that we all know the effects that pornography has on a person, right?
Yeah.
And at a time it gets very intense, you need help, but you never really speak up about it. Why would you keep something like that to yourself?
Well, I don't think for some people though, And for the kind of friends they keep, some people are actually quite good with it, but for most, they tend to do it secretly. That's because most times guys who watch pornography a lot are guys who can't get girlfriends, and so they don't want to be seen. And they also want to come out and make mouths that they can have girls, but then when your guys know that this is what you do, there is that belief, and they might not be wrong though, because pornography does have some effect on your social lifestyle. So it's almost generally believed that if you watch pornography, you probably won't be able to talk to them very well.
Is it believed or it's true?
I think there's some truth in that, but then some guys would beg to differ.
Yeah, well, earlier today
guys
when we were speaking, we said something about pornography bringing down your confidence level
Yes,
when you have
it
to
does.
relate with the opposite sex.
It has that effect in most people who are addicted to pornography. And this is so because generally how they interact with women isn't quite the same as the way they would interact with the person in real life, because when you're seeing pornography, you're not communicating with the person, you're not exchanging conversations, but then they're doing what you want them to do, but then in real life you have to actually carry a proper conversation. They don't have this experience.
That's true. Thank you very much. Okay, so there is something that men do that I find very funny. Sometimes they pass off their addictions. They're in denial of these addictions, right? And then they pass it off as bragging rights. For instance, a person or a man who can drink, who is addicted to alcohol. Alcoholism is a really big problem. But then I see guys passing it off as, oh, I'm not addicted. Why would you do that? You know?
Yeah.
What is the logic behind that?
I think you've actually encroached on the logic. Yeah. You see, the problem is accepting that it's actually an addiction. You know, because we pass it off to mean something different. Alright? See, if you're a guy and you're in the midst of other guys and you can't drink, you start to feel a bit uneasy. There's this sense of unease that you have that you're a soft man, you're not a guy, you know. Yeah? And you see the other guy who is addicted to alcohol. I mean, this guy can drink the whole brewery. Yeah? And then we pass it off as a bragging right, like if you bring one crate here, nah, we'll finish up. And you see, you know the guy now, you know they drink it. I mean, it happened just recently when we're talking about alcoholism and all of that. And I was with some of my friends, and he said he was going to bring a type of alcohol. Yeah? And I said, I don't take alcohol. Like, just do my vibe, that was what he said. That's not just a statement he made just to pass on some sort of message to me. No, he's actually telling me that, guy, you're not acting like a guy. Alright, so it's in the acceptance of it. Now, I must be careful to say that some people actually drink and it's not an addiction. Yeah? But some other people, just like every other thing we are addicted to. For example, let me give an example of gambling. So that I would really stress this point of defending our masculinity. Yeah. Someone who is addicted to gambling, and usually wins, will be quick to tell you about how he's very skillful at gambling and has a thing, alright? But whenever he loses, he may not talk about it. You understand? He may not talk about it.
When he's losing.
When he's losing, and most times, guys lose. Yeah, and it's something. It's not something you would brag about.
So, like, where do you know to draw the line? Where do you know to accept the fact that, okay, this thing is an addiction. I cannot pass it off as anything else but an addiction.
Like I said,
do you talk to a person? What do you do?
Let me elaborate to actually.
Well, for something such as gambling, I don't think people come to that point where they tell themselves that, okay, gambling is bad. As long as they always have a chance to do it, they always go ahead and do it. You know, so there's the only point I feel like they will change is when it has really ruined them, when they've reached rock bottom and there's nothing else they can do again. Or maybe it has ruined their life, maybe they've lost their family, they've lost their business, and finally there's nothing they have again, or anything they have to bet on or to gamble with. So they finally come back to their senses. They are finally able to think and trace their footsteps, and then realize that this is what's ruining me, and this was actually bad for me.
Okay, so basically, pornography, alcoholism, gambling, and a lot of other things that men do not accept are addictions are terrible. So please stay away from them. The very next thing that I want to talk about is something that people generally find difficult to talk about, men, women, children alike, and it is trauma.